Hello my friends, and welcome back to the unexpected part 3 of restoring my Ninjago store display to its former glory. As you just saw, it worked. We got to a point where it is looking good. But that is not where we left off at the end of part 2. At the end of part 2, I was literally sitting on the floor. I was $200 in the hole on buying acrylic that didn't end up fitting, and I was just crushed by the feeling of ineptitude that comes with failing at something that you're already anxious about. So this is the story of how we got from there to here. Okie doke. We just got an Amazon package here. We have our tape for the lights up top. We have the acrylic cement to weld everything together. Comes with an applicator, I believe, as well. And the last thing that I'm the most excited about is the power adapter. So I'm gonna try that out. Also my cat's food. But let's try out the power. Oh wait, I don't have the push button plugged in. But it's going. It's doing the thing. Now I just need to reinstall the push button and I think we'll be golden. Yes! Yes! Success! This is our first success! Woohoo! At this point, I think I have to talk about the elephant in the room from the last part, which was the idea of getting some sort of refund from the manufacturer. I sent them an email asking if they had any sort of partial refund or discount for people who had messed up on their first go, and this is the email that I got back. It's very professional, likely automated, but absolutely serviceable. And they offered me a 30% discount on my next purchase. So my wife and I got back to measuring, and she made sure that I got every measurement 100% perfect before I hit order again. Agonizingly, I was off by less than a centimeter in most directions on my original measurements, but the core problem with the first attempt was that I had built my panels to the dimensions of the inside of the base, with no room for the shell to expand outward, even though I thought that I had taken this into consideration. I'd factored in the side panels being sandwiched, but I didn't make them long enough to touch the front and the back panels, and I didn't extend the front and back panels to meet the sides. I also found this.
Okay, so I've discovered something in measuring, which is that this is not a straight line. As you can see, this red piece is a straight line, and they're very close to touching here at the very top, and down here at the very bottom, they're very wide. So I need to do all of my measurements before this begins to widen out, so that I get all these measurements correct. So to this edge here is 23 inches. But to this edge here is only 58 centimeters. So I need to be very careful about how I'm measuring these, because that will throw off the whole thing.
Once I understood this, the fix was decently straightforward. I retook the measurements, remade the CAD, and hit order again. YOLO, I guess.
Okie doke, we just got in our second version of the shell, and I'm happy to say it fits like a glove. There's these little gaps here above the screws. I wish that I had shrunk the hole. It's a full centimeter in diameter at the moment. I wish that I'd shrunk that down some. But honestly, once this is all glued together, and once this paper is off, I don't think that you will notice that. Even a little bit, I think it'll just be good. And if I had a wash or whatever, I could always do that. But our hole over here for the push button fits like a glove. Our line along the top of this matches this just perfectly. And this side, I mean, it's caving in a little bit because it's not glued, but that's just because these screws down here are a little bit loose. But you can see that everything boxes together just about perfectly. These line up so that this back panel and this work on this side. Everything fits in the back here. And so this whole thing, whoop, it just tipped a little bit, but that's, again, because it's not glued together. So now I just have to glue this together. And we will be good. I'm very excited. I'm very, very, very excited. So I'll see you on the flip side.
Acrylic solvent cement. Let me tell you about acrylic solvent cement. The stuff comes in a metal tin, and I do mean a metal tin with no pour spout, no cap you can twist off. You literally have to hammer holes into the top to get it out. I tried cracking the lid first, and that did not work. Before I touch any of this, I'm putting on latex gloves. This is some chemically stuff, and while it won't bond to anything but acrylic, it will dry out your hands, so use protection. I think the way this stuff works is genuinely very cool. It's an extremely thin liquid, thinner than water, and when you run it along the seam between two pieces of acrylic, capillary action pulls it into the crack. It dissolves both surfaces simultaneously, and as it evaporates, they fuse together. It's less of a glue and more of a weld, because these are chemically now one piece of plastic. For that to work, you need acrylic touching acrylic. These sheets come with a protective paper on both sides, which means anywhere I'm making a joint, I need to peel back the paper on the flat welding surface first. I don't have to do this on the side pieces because the plastic doesn't cover the edges, but on the 90-degree corners, if I don't peel it back, I'm just cementing paper to plastic and it just won't bond. I'm doing this in stages. I only have 2 clamps, so we're going to do 2 L shapes first. Front panel and one side panel, and then back panel and the other side panel. This stuff theoretically gets to about 80% hold in 2 minutes, but it takes 24 hours to reach 100% security. I'm giving them each about 2 hours from initial bond time until I'm comfortable taking off the clamps, just so that I can get them all done kind of in a single day, but also I'm not worried about them popping apart because I didn't give them enough time.
I mean, it holds.
It's not fully cured yet, so I gotta be careful with it. But it's like,
It's one piece, you know? Now we get to do the other side.
clamping top and bottom does most of the work, but leaves the middle free to bow slightly under the pressure, so painter's tape helps hold in the middle while everything cures. While the acrylic was curing, I had a ton of time to kill, so I sat down and I typed. I kept a journal throughout this whole project, partly to keep myself sane, and partly because I knew I was going to need to remember all of it when it came time to edit this video.
Okey-doke. So it's been about, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8 hours total today that I've been putting this together. And in theory, everything should be at least pretty dry. It takes 24 hours to do the overnight curing to be really, really, truly done. But I think it's, it's about 2 hours until I can take the clamps off. So we've done that on all of our sides, which means we can inspect our work. The only thing we have left to do is the very top. And hopefully, if I've done everything right, the top will just sit on. So, we'll remove all of the clamps. Now I don't want to be too rough with it because obviously it's not finished 100% curing, but it seems like all of our joints are. This one needs a little bit more work. These two are actually not touching. So that I'll probably give a little extra TLC as we add the lid. This one's pretty good. This one's pretty good. That one's perfect. I mean, they're all perfect on the bottom because we've had gravity on our side. So now,
finally, the part we've all been waiting for, the peelies.
shell is a box, now the lid. I'd already figured out in Vectorworks where all of the lights needed to go on the top shell. You saw me do it in part 2. But getting those positions translated onto the new acrylic shell is an entirely different problem. So here's what I came up with. The new acrylic still has its paper covering, which gives me a surface to mark on. I printed out my CAD plan with measurements to each corner of each light. Then, point by point, I measured X and Y to each location and put a dot. Connect the dots, you've got your positions. I didn't have a right angle drawing tool big enough, so I used a white Lego baseplate as a straight edge, which I think might be my favorite moment of this entire project. Now, the final result was not perfect. A lot of the squares came out rather lopsided, but from my background as a lighting designer, these are just LED bulbs. They're not spotlights, they don't have a defined beam angle, they're not like a stage light or spotlight, just a directional wash. So as long as I have them pretty close, that's good enough. Once I had the shapes drawn, I went over each dot with an expo marker, so they'd be visible from the other side through the paper and through the acrylic.
Ooh, it's not exact. It is kind of close.
The lights are held in with push rivets, similar to the base of the display. My plastic spudger snapped almost immediately.
That's not good. Yep, I needed something more.
Most came out fine, but the one mounted at an angle had metal rivets instead of plastic ones, so I had to drill those out.
That's acceptable. I need to put way less pressure on though. I very nearly could have damaged that light. Oof. Okay, we're good.
They were also held down with an adhesive foam pad underneath each one, which I cut through with a box cutter.
Okay, so now I'm going to take basically this whole thing, this whole assembly, I'm going to try to basically flip it. So now all of our lights are kind of in their base positions, and then we're going to bring in the new piece. Something I noticed is that each one of these has little numbers written on the back here. So that's going to help tremendously with figuring out where they went. There we go. Before you ask, yes, this is supposed to be trapped in here. I won't attach these yet. We'll leave those for a bit. Okay, power test. Here we go. It seems to work. Woo! Now comes the best part. Demolition! I'm gonna need some help on this. I'm gonna need some help on this.
I started with the wooden pillars.
Oops.
The brittle plastic cracking around the pillars is fine. At this point, I don't really care what happens to the old shell. But if I'd tried this before the shell was built, before I had my measurements, that cracking could have been the base of the display, and no matter what, it would have been game over.
Glad I didn't try to take that out before. That would have been bad.
With the pillars cleared, I could get to the back of the original shell, and this is where you can see most clearly how LEGO originally made this thing. The whole shell is one long piece of acrylic, heat bent around 4 corners with a strip of plastic running up the middle of the back to seal the 2 ends together. Elegant, I just like my flat panel laser cut version a little bit better. I thought about removing the back graphic intact. It's glued to the rear wall in 3 long strips, but I didn't want to risk damaging it, so I cut around it instead. The third pillar was glued to the back graphic in 2 places.
This is attached here and again down here as well with this piece. This looks like there's a scuff there as well.
I did my best to cut it cleanly.
Oh, that sucks. It's a lot of damage. So that's the damage we've got on this side. I might be able to try to restore that or try to reprint it or scan it or something. That's a bummer. There's a back panel. God, so much of this could have been avoided if they just hadn't used wood glue.
The last few battery pack rivets in the base kept spinning freely when I tried to drill them, so I tried grabbing onto one to hold it still.
That's very hot. Don't touch that. Also very hot on the other side. Don't touch that.
So I used a vice grip from the backside.
Wow, in one go. No problem. All right. Now this should just pop out. And you have a batteryless base. Look at that.
The lid. This took more thought than expected. My first instinct was to try to glue it on the same way that I glued the panels to each other. But then if I'd added the lights to the top and then run the cable tight down the backside, there's no way that I'd ever be able to get the whole shell off if I ever needed to. I mean, honestly, at that point, I don't know how I'd even get it back on. I also considered a hinge, but that would either mean drilling into the acrylic here and here, same on the other side, or using some more adhesive solvent cement, neither of which I really wanted to do at this stage. I didn't want to mess anything up. Both felt like too much of a risk at this stage. I also considered magnets, like these ones on my minifigure wall display, but again, drilling. In hindsight, I wish I'd used an interlocking system, like on these shelf-mounted minifigure displays, where the lid just slots onto the walls. But that would have had to be designed into the laser cut file from the beginning, and I didn't think about it until it was way too late. So what I landed on is this. I went out to Lowe's and found these clearish silicone furniture feet pads. I'm going to stick one on each inside corner of the lid so that when I slot it on top, it won't slide around. It just rests on top of the 4 walls. No hardware, no permanent adhesive to the walls. All that remains at this point is to attach a stud onto the metal pillar for the Overlord minifigure, attach the front graphic, attach the base, and attach the back graphic. VHB on the metal pillar, just in case I ever need to remove him, and the Overlord goes on top. He looks so good next to the golden dragon.
With red, yep, great. Now it goes to the button. And this goes into this. This no longer does anything. So we'll just set it to the side. Here's the zip ties. Here's all the pegs and all the glue holes. That's all very cool, but we're gonna cover it all up. I have no idea how I'm gonna get these back through there. So what I think I'm gonna do is try to push them until they're just barely in the hole, which pushes together their prongs just a little bit. Then I'm going to line up the holes and push this through and hope that it goes all the way through. Oh my God, it did. Oh, wow. Okay, all right, okay. There's two. He's not quite in. Now he's in. And push it all the way in, and now I can't pull this out. Ooh, excellent. We are based up.
One thing I hadn't accounted for is that because I cut out the back graphic from the original acrylic, it has some thickness to it. With the rubber feet sized for the original shell dimensions, adding the thickness from the back graphic made the fit just a little bit tighter. I figured it would be fine. It was not fine, but that comes later.
Ooh. Okay, it did tear a little bit, but a little bit I'm okay with. Okey-doke. So today should be the final day of work on this project, which I'm very excited about. I've had a couple of things, it's been a little bit since I recorded last, and a couple of things have cropped up. The first of which is that this corner down here has actually come unwelded, unglued, just in kind of the transit of moving it around. The second thing is that the little feet that go in these corners have also come unattached over the course of the last few days. So those are a couple things that I am just gonna have to deal with. And this time I have gloves, so I don't want to get any fingerprints on this bad boy at this point. I'm done with that.
Lid off, base off, button and power supply disconnected, screws out, shell off, and some leftover paper tucked into the corners of the shell that I'd missed the first time. Very satisfying. Then I went to get the acrylic cement. It turns out, and I did not know this, acrylic cement evaporates if you don't seal it perfectly. I thought I had sealed it, but there were only a few drips left in the bottom of the tin. I got those drips into the applicator, ran them along the cracked corner, and it held just barely enough. Then I dusted the whole interior. It had gotten quite dusty in there. The front graphic requires a little bit of explanation. When I removed it from the original shell, I found out it's not paper, it's actually a translucent textured plastic, more like a shrinky-dink than an actual sticker. Which meant that my original plan of scanning it and touching it up and printing it out on photo paper and attaching it to the inside was never going to look 100% right. I was never going to get that kind of transparency. So instead, I cut it out very carefully, which left me with some rough edges, and to fix that, I used flame polishing. Flame polishing is when you pass a lighter very briefly along the cut edge of the plastic. The heat melts the surface tension just enough to smooth it out. Rough, frosted cut edges become clean and slightly glossy. You have to move fast though, linger too long and you distort the piece or burn it, discoloring the final product. Done right, it looks like it was never cut at all. Then VHB tape to the front of the shell, and that's that. Next up is cable management. Adhesive zip tie mounts along the lid, Sharpie mark on each cable at the tie point, snip the original, slide the new one in, lock it, pull tight. The backmost one had to wait until the shell was on to align with the channel cut into the back, so I put the shell on upside down to get that right, which also gave me the perfect opportunity to reline up the rubber feet with the back graphic in place this time, with a firmer adhesive. When I'd added the back graphic the first time, it was so tight to the rubber feet that two of them just popped off completely. So let's get it right. Also, I found a little piece of paper towel on the bottom of the shell, and so I burned that off with fire. It worked. Shell on base, lid on shell, zip tie channel added to the back, nearly identical to the originals, just slightly bigger because that's what I had. Screws in, cabling into the base, base plate on. Alas, with the front graphic, I actually didn't measure where its exact placement was on the original. I forgot. After everything I'd been through with the measurements on this project, honestly, I eyeballed it. I had plenty of reference photos, and I'm pretty confident that it's right. While I was examining different options for restoring this front graphic, I found someone else's listing on a German resale website, which came with a picture. The picture wasn't the best, but I did discover that there's a serial number printed on this front graphic, both on mine and theirs, and they're different. I wonder if this means that this is the individual serialized number of my display. Unclear. Theirs also had a large Lego knob on the front, which makes me wonder if Kai's spinner originally spun in some variations of this display. Please leave a comment below if you've ever seen a variation somewhere else. And with everything completed, I sealed it up and turned it on. Energy is low, but morale isn't. And one more thing. You may have noticed that the assembly footage looked a little bit different from what you're seeing here now. There were slightly different measurements, and in that version, the lid was glued to the walls. That's because it was a different box. The first $200 of acrylic, the ones that I was so devastated about because they were the wrong measurements, that I was sitting on the floor at the end of part 2, well, I kind of had this epiphany while I was waiting for the new pieces to ship that, even if those measurements were wrong, it still made a box that I could glue together. And it made sense to my mind at the time to use it as a practice run to make sure that I knew what I was doing when it came to gluing the acrylic together for the final product. So I used it as a practice run, figuring out my gluing process, and now it lives on this shelf holding 2 of my LEGO Star Wars sets that my cats were previously using as a launching pad. They're collecting significantly less dust than they were before, and that first $200 didn't go to waste. It still makes a box after all. Okay, so the final number that you've been waiting for. The first send cut send order, the wrong one, cost $189.75. The second send cut send order, $162.43 because of the discount that they provided me. Amazon was $80.96. That was the acrylic solvent cement, the power adapter, and the clamps. And Lowe's was $12.73 for the rubber feet. Grand total on the restoration itself, $387.62, plus $10 for this little frame that I got as a little memento, souvenir of this entire process. It has one of the wooden pillars along the bottom to remind me where we came from, and it has the measurements for the box itself, as well as the diagram for how I was laying out the top lights, and in the center, the focal point, is the circuit board that used to once condense all of the power from the 16 batteries all into one power run to the display. I really think that this is neat because even if someone were to have this exact same store display in a better condition, the chances that they've gone through all of the whole process that I have and have taken out this particular circuit board are slim to none. So in my mind, this is the most unique part of the whole process. No one else has one of these. And to be honest, why would they? But I like it. I think it's cool. And if you want to factor in the $250 I spent on the display itself 2 years ago, and honestly, you probably should, that means that our grand total for this entire store display process is, over the course of 2 years, $637.62 total for this. And look, I just want to be really honest with you. Do I recommend doing something like this, building an acrylic case for a set that you might love, instead of buying a pre-built one off of a website like Wicked Brick, my personal favorites? No. Of course not. Unless you actively want the experience of doing and making something just like this, a case from Wicked Brick will run you on average $20 to $30 less for a case of about the same size in a much shorter time frame and much more professionally made. Maybe there's a price point where the two balance out and this method becomes a little bit cheaper, but not where I'm at. Not for an amateur like me. I mean, heck, even LEGO themselves did their original version of this store display in a cheaper method. So then, what is the point of doing all of this? What makes it special? This is something that I've been thinking about for a long time as I've been spending so much money and pouring so much blood, sweat, and tears into this project. Because the sets are not unique. You can just buy those off of Bricklink or any other marketplace that you might like. And the paper backdrop, the little tags, the stickers, the arrangement of the parts, you could recreate all of that with a large enough printer and some hot glue if you really wanted to. So it's probably not that either. So I guess it must just be the history. The fact that this was made by the LEGO Group and was sitting on store shelves and was marketing one of my favorite LEGO themes to kids who might have grown up to become collectors themselves. That's probably why collecting these hasn't become super popular in and of itself, because none of the parts inside are unique at all. But the collection of them, the collection that was meant to be destroyed, is greater than the sum of its parts. So this exact presentation in this exact arrangement is easily the rarest and the coolest thing in my LEGO collection. And that's saying something. It's pretty special. But Is what I have now more or less special than what originally arrived in the mail 2 years ago? Well, I don't really know. I mean, the internals are all the same, the shell is new, the front graphic is refreshed, the back graphic is carefully cut around, the lights are all roughly in the same place, and the wooden pillars are now sitting in a frame that will eventually be hanging on the wall. So is it a restoration? Is it an improvement? Is it something new that contains something old? I mean, yeah, it's kind of all three of those things. So what do you think? Would you do something this unhinged to preserve a piece of Lego history? Do you think that it is more or less special than when it arrived in the mail 2 years ago? Let me know all of your thoughts in the comments below. And please, if you've enjoyed this, consider subscribing to see me do more kind of unhinged Lego content, if you will, all in the name of history. Please like the video if you enjoyed this particular one. And if you are interested, I just recently started up a Patreon where I have uncut behind the scenes footage putting this whole thing together. I'm kind of trying to get a sense for the stuff that will go up there, but the goal of that is to help support me in creating really cool content that I can then give to you guys. So please consider checking me out there. Like I said, subscribe, like the video, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you for watching.